Look, let's stop pretending. If you're watching the tickers on CNBC or checking your portfolio and thinking, hey, oil is only at $100, we're holding the line, you are being professionally managed. You are being fed a psychological sedative while the actual gears of the global economy are grinding to a halt. We've seen crises before 73, 92, 2008, but what's happening right now in April 2026 is fundamentally different. It's a crisis of physical atoms versus digital promises. For the last 6 weeks, the Strait of Hormuz has been a ghost town. 1/5 of the world's energy supply is simply gone. Now, usually that sends prices to the moon instantly, but look at the charts. Someone, and we know exactly who, has been dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into paper oil shorts. Every time a terrifying headline drops about the blockade, a massive anonymous sell order hits the futures market 20 minutes before the news goes live. It's not a coincidence. It's a controlled demolition of price discovery. The goal? To keep the American consumer from panicking, to keep the S&P 500 at all-time highs while the White House tries to negotiate a backdoor deal. But here's what they aren't telling you. The buffer is dead. As of yesterday, April 20th, the last tankers that cleared the strait before the closure have reached their final destinations. The pre-closure oil is burned. The refineries in Texas and California are looking at empty schedules. We aren't just talking about a price hike anymore. We are talking about a forced convergence, when those paper contracts expire and the buyers demand actual, physical barrels that don't exist. The short squeeze will be the most violent event in the history of the commodities market. We're not looking at $120 oil, we're looking at a $150 minimum, and we're looking at it hitting your local gas station within the next 72 hours. But that's just the surface. If you want to see where the real power shift is happening, you have to look at the one place the mainstream media is terrified to mention: the sovereign bond market. For 80 years, the US Treasury was the world's safe haven. In a crisis, you bought dollars. You bought American debt. Not this time. Since the blockade began, US yields have spiked to 4.3%, 4.5%, heading toward the dead zone of 5%. Meanwhile, look at China. Their yields are falling, for the first time in modern history. Global capital is fleeing the West and seeking shelter in Beijing. This isn't just an oil shock. It is a geopolitical divorce. The world is betting that the US can no longer protect the plumbing of global trade, and they're putting their money where the physical resources are. Now here is the part that should keep you up at night. The strategy, if you can even call it, that was to squeeze China and Russia by cutting off their cheap energy. The theory was that the US, with our massive shale production, would be the last man standing. We'd be the global gas station. It backfired. The US military has spent the last 5 weeks firing off its most advanced cruise missile inventory to keep the lanes open. We've burned through years of stockpiles in 35 days, and guess what? To rebuild those missiles, you need rare earth magnets, tungsten, and specialized semiconductors. Guess who controls 80% of that supply chain? China. We are currently in a position where we are using our limited weapons to fight a war that protects a trade route we've already lost, while needing to ask our primary geopolitical rival for the raw materials to keep our guns loaded. It is a strategic checkmate. This is why you see the sudden, desperate diplomatic missions to Beijing. It's not about peace. It's about begging for the atoms we need to stay a superpower. And while the diplomats beg, the domestic economy is about to hit the food wall. Most people think oil is just for cars. It's not. It's fertilizer. Natural gas flows through Hormuz are the feedstock for urea. That chart you're seeing right now, the 200% spike in fertilizer costs, that is your grocery bill in 6 months. We saw this in 2022, but this is 2022 on steroids. We are entering a debt spiral. As oil drives inflation back to 8% or 10%, the Fed can't cut rates. If they can't cut rates, the interest on our $40 trillion debt explodes. We are spending more on interest than on our military. This is how empires end, not with a bang, but with a balance sheet that no longer computes. The paper market has been a beautiful lie that allowed us to live beyond our means and pretend the physical world didn't matter. But the Strait of Hormuz is a physical reality. The empty spar is a physical reality. The Chinese control of tungsten is a physical reality. Wall Street is pricing in a Goldilocks scenario: zero recession, zero correction. History tells us that when the gap between Main Street sentiment and Wall Street prices gets this wide, it's never Main Street that's wrong. The convergence is here. The tsunami is no longer on the horizon. It's at the shore. Prepare accordingly, because when the paper burns away, all that's left is what you can actually hold in your hands.